No, the thumbnail isn't clickbait. Today we got Yai's confession and devotion to Aldebaran, but the traitor was only thinking about Priscilla. Anyway, this act reminds us of what happened back in episode 18. This episode was shorter than usual, mainly because it was dedicated to explaining what was happening behind the scenes. It explained what Felix was doing during Aldebaran's entire betrayal, told us the outcome of Rem versus Yai, and also delved a bit into Al's origins. But not only that, it also planted the seeds for another subplot, the subplot of Reinhard's return. But we'll cover that in detail soon. Before we continue, a shout out to the Mushoku Tensei fan named Einstein. I don't know what a Rudeus fan is doing on a ReZero channel, but I hope you have a good time here. Another special thanks to Jose Garcia and Patricio Sepulveda. I haven't had the pleasure of meeting you, but if you like ReZero, you are more than welcome on this channel. And thanks for taking that extra step to support me financially. As for the English channel, thanks to the regulars for the usual support, and I hope our numbers grow soon. Now let's begin. Analysis and recap of Arc 9, Episode 57. Honestly, with how chaotic the arc has been, even I forgot what Felix was up to. But it makes sense that he was behind the scenes healing all the wounded from Felt's army and Emilia's companions. The last we heard of him was that he had gone to the capital to see if he could enlist in one of the missions being sent to the Watchtower. That's why I wasn't too surprised when that info was repeated. But what was a great detail were these words. These words came at an opportune moment because Felix, despite his innate magical talent, lacks the physical strength to defend what he wants. Sure, he can heal, but sometimes that isn't enough. This has been made clear with the condition of his lady crush. Felix can't heal her despite his best efforts. That's why, when he heard the chaos Aldebaran caused, he wasn't that enthusiastic about the idea because he doesn't know how much he can really contribute. In a way, he's reminded once again of his weakness and helplessness. That's why remembering the words of the former prince, a character who was important in the Felix and Crush novel, helped him clear those doubts and commit to the battle. And fate would compensate him by bringing him precisely a rival that Felix is the perfect counter for. And honestly, that's appreciated. Felix has been kicked around by the story ever since he was introduced. After arriving on the battlefield and getting separated by the explosion, the last we heard from Felix was that as soon as he heard Aldebaran's desperate scream looking for gluttony, he implied that he could still do something. But I have my serious doubts about this because Reinhard has already arrived on the battlefield. What more can Felix contribute? Anyway, let's move on to the traitor's point of view. I think this was my favorite part of today's episode. It clarifies the reason why he can no longer commit suicide. You see, I had the doubt that Felix could only heal him completely as long as he had his hand on him, but it seems that isn't necessary. That's because Felix applied a continuous spell on him, meaning a spell that will constantly heal him based on the available mana. And since right now Aldebaran is using the dragon's near-infinite mana reservoir, well, the traitor is screwed by his own plans. It is said that when he started looking for Roy, he did so with such intensity and force that his throat started bleeding. But Felix's magic activated and allowed him to keep searching. Something interesting that is also mentioned, and which seems to give more clues about the sanctuary's echidna and the one from 400 years ago, is that when Aldebaran talks about them, he says that the witch he knew transformed into the Witch of Greed, meaning the Witch of the Sanctuary. I don't know if it's just a weird way of saying they are distinct entities, or if the story just spoiled what happened for us. Are both echidnas really the same person? We'll have to wait for more information. It is also said that although his name is Natsuki Rigel, in reality, he was never called by that name by his parents. That fact, along with the other detail that Aldebaran never went through adolescence, makes me believe that when he was created, he appeared already with the Subaru-like appearance we saw in one of the illustrations from the previous volume. Then something happened that I've seen cause some controversy in the fandom. Controversy because they say the author helps Emilia too much. It turns out that since Aldebaran didn't use the aggressor side of his power again, people are saying he didn't do it just because the candidate arrived, claiming it's an unbelievable way to develop the fight. Obviously, they say this decision is unfair, but I think they forget that if Aldebaran used that power, it was because Petra had cornered him significantly by compressing his thoughts. But since the compression is over, he also lost the mental state that allowed him to use that side of his power. Personally, I don't care about that part. What surprised me more is realizing that Aldebaran actually hasn't mastered his aggressor ability as well as it seemed. In the previous fight, I thought Aldebaran had chosen all his victims on his own, and that's why he left Petra as the final victim. But no, today's episode reveals that he actually can't choose at will who falls into his power yet. Furthermore, If he were to use it and had bad luck, he could lock himself up again with the Witch of Melancholy. Honestly, I think it's the only thing in the episode that doesn't sound so convincing to me. But I imagine it could be explained by the logic that since his heart has been weakened, so has his control and confidence in this power, or something like that. Although a detail I found great is the way Aldebaran faces conflicts now that he has no authority. It describes how he doubts all his choices and what he should do. He doesn't know what the safe path is. Believe it or not, we've seen this in the past. And I don't mean with Subaru, but with Roswaal. In the second season, it is revealed to us that every decision the Marquis made was due to the book Echidna left him. So, when Ram burns the book in Season 2, that action is more important for the character than it seems. I don't want to go into details about this, but I can tell you that it is because of the burning of the book that Roswaal goes mad and reaches at one point a state similar to Aldebaran's current one. A state where he can no longer rely on an external power for his plans. But another example that fits and helps better understand the parallel between Aldebaran and Subaru is that uncertainty the traitor has about not knowing which path to choose to reach his goals. In reality, Subaru already lived through this in the second season, in that same season where Roswaal's weakness I just mentioned happens. By this point in the story, Subaru is determined to die as many times as necessary to save his loved ones, but he has the same problem as Al right now. He doesn't know what the right decisions are. That's why Echidna, the Witch of Greed, offering her help was very tempting at the time. However, Subaru was able to get through that rough patch thanks to the bonds he forged and didn't let die. But since Aldebaran hasn't taken exactly the same actions, well, it's logical he doesn't have the same options as the protagonist. Although despite the different journey, he managed to find a Rem equivalent, Yi. Honestly, I doubted Yi was dead. The episode where she was defeated never confirmed it. Although the narration makes it clear Yi was going to die if Rem hadn't healed her enough to survive. Her plan was to chain her and keep her as a hostage. Or so she thought. It turns out Yi was controlling her all along. Since Yi could no longer defeat Rem, she trusted that the maid wouldn't kill her and would only restrain her. Then she would look for a way to escape, and the explosion that affected everyone created that opportunity. And here I must correct myself on some words I said in the past. When I talked about Yi, I said she served Aldebaran out of fear and not love. It turns out I was actually wrong. While Yi felt fear for him, even so, from one moment to the next, she started feeling things for Aldebaran, but silenced those special feelings, saying they were just feelings of fear. This contradiction started becoming more contradictory when, at the end of her duel with Rem, she admits she wants to end all this as soon as possible, to avoid putting another name to these feelings that kept blooming inside her. I know there will be someone here who doesn't like this toxic relationship, but guys, we are in Re-Zero. I think all relationships here started from someone's obsession. Roswaal with Echidna, Ram with Roswaal, Subaru with Emilia. It's like I'd be more surprised if Yi didn't end up feeling something for Aldebaran. But why are the feelings of a simp ninja relevant now? Was Rem an idiot for healing the enemy and letting her escape? Well, we'll talk about that now. When Yi arrives on the battlefield, she hears how Aldebaran plans to make everyone forget him. This brings conflict to the ninja because she doesn't want that, and instead of serving as transport and taking Aldebaran to Roy, she decides to just hug him and tell him she doesn't want to forget him. And just as Subaru didn't understand why his allies died saving him in the second season, now it's Aldebaran's turn to wonder why Yi does this for someone like him. Anyway, parallels, I guess. So, in the end, Rem's action of healing her and letting her escape didn't end up being so bad, since if Yi hadn't arrived, Aldebaran would probably have achieved his purpose. Mind you, it was sad to see how while Yi was giving the speech of her life, Aldebaran was only thinking about Priscilla. But let's move on to the last point of the chapter. After what was narrated previously, what does Reinhard have to do with this? Well, I'll tell you. As soon as Emilia returns to the battlefield, the candidate for the throne tells us certain things. And among them, she explains that before Rem's combat, the maid received a powerful healing spell that would help her in the fights. That healing spell was what saved her from being decapitated by Yi. In fact, in that chapter, the text refers to Felix, but the words cut off before pronouncing his name. Personally, I would have liked the healing to have been Rem's own achievement, but it's done now. And now comes the best part of the video, and the part that, for some reason, I don't see anyone talking about. Honestly, I don't know how people sometimes get bogged down in trivialities and overlook things that really matter. What do I care if Yi fell in love? Ladies and gentlemen, we are in Re-Zero. Everyone falls in love intensely here. What do I care that apparently Amelia and Rem ruined it again by being kind to their enemies? That was expected of them. But today, something happened that caused Aldebaran to realize something weird is going on with Amelia. As soon as he sees she tries to protect him again from the incoming tsunami, the narration says what you see on screen right now, that the novel says in this part that there was an irreversible error in the buttons, and that this error was there even before his authority was sealed, implies that, according to Aldebaran, Amelia shouldn't feel that instinct to want to save him. As I told you in other videos, it seems Aldebaran knows certain things about the world thanks to Echidna's authority, and he finds it strange that Amelia goes so far for him. But the fact that the novel mentions Amelia's concern for the traitor and accompanies it with the phrase error in the buttons, to me, and I might be wrong, it implies that when they created Amelia, in her configuration parameters, they put certain values that shouldn't be there. I know I speak of Amelia as if she were a robot, but I can't find another way to explain what I'm going to say, and as always, I will attach proof. You see, in the past, when Betelgeuse met Amelia for the first time, he reacts as if he already knew her, and there's nothing weird about that. It's logical to think he already knew about her and got excited seeing her. But at the same time, he tells her something peculiar. He tells her there is one thing he learned from her. How did Betelgeuse learn something from someone he hadn't met yet? I can't help but think that whatever he learned has something to do with Amelia's real age. I know some believe Amelia is approximately 115 years old, but in reality, there is no official confirmation. There is the occasional reference that it seems like, one way or another, Amelia was around 400 years ago. In fact, in the Isekai Quartet movie, interesting lore was revealed. It was revealed that Hoshin knew Amelia, even though he existed 400 years ago, and he even tells her she hasn't changed. By the way, the Isekai Quartet novel is interesting, but it drops so much important lore that I'm considering making a video about it as soon as I finish the Arc 6 theory video. But if you're interested in knowing about that, please let me know by leaving a comment. As we can see, it's not crazy to say that certain parameters were modified in Amelia after knowing this. Parameters that Aldebaran took for granted wouldn't apply. And maybe these parameters explain a mystery left by Arc 2, the arc where Subaru arrives at the mansion for the first time. In a failed loop of that arc, which was cut from the anime, it narrates how Amelia fed Subaru, but the world ended and that action didn't happen. However, Amelia in the second season comments to Subaru that she has the feeling she has already fed him in the past. Could it be that this configuration of parameters is what allows Amelia to be known by beings from 400 years ago, apparently remember loops, and also feel the need to save Aldebaran? That configuration better be a satisfactory answer because even I am curious to know how those parameters allow Amelia to do all this. But Amelia isn't the only one with this special configuration. Another entity with this configuration seems to be Subaru. There comes a point in Arc 7 where a particular conversation happens. A conversation you'd better pay attention and listen to.
兄弟にも次の隠れ場は見当がつかねえと。いやそりゃそうだよな。
そりゃそうって期待薄なのかもだけど、はっきり言われるとへこむぜ。
At the start of the real game of hide and seek, his allies stabbed him in the back. Of course, Subaru took that as a fair assessment, but he really wished he would have been a bit less direct. Even close friends have some sense of consideration. However, in response to Subaru's words, Al waved his hand and said, "Oh, that's not it."
兄弟にわからねえのも無理ねえ話だ。なんせ俺が一緒にいるからよ。
ちょっと何言ってるのかわかんない。アルがいると俺の知能指数が下がる的な話。どういうシステム？
そういう話でもねえんだが説明が難しいよな。
同意求められてもわからないけど。
Even as he spoke, Al himself seemed unsure of his point, which was strange. Aside from Al tilting his head, it seemed this conversation wasn't going to move in a constructive direction any further. Deciphering the next clue left by Orbolt was his top priority.
In this conversation, we see how Aldebaran refers to the fact that it seems Subaru is configured to be more impulsive when he is next to him. Whether the protagonist really has that configuration or not, I don't know. But hopefully, this question that few noticed from Arc 7 will be resolved soon. Before continuing, this is Conejotako speaking, the one editing this. I just confirmed by reading other translations that in the part of the text where it says buttons, it seems to be an exclusive error of the Spanish translation. From what I saw in other languages, that word doesn't appear. So please take the initial clue of buttons as something uncertain. However, all the events I mentioned after that part are confirmed events that still lack an answer to this day. Sorry for the inconvenience. Now let's go back to the original topic. Finally, we move to the last part, the part of Reinhard's supposed arrival. I clarify that the text never specifies that Reinhard arrived. It only says a character arrived and said some lines. Since these lines were previously said by Reinhard, well, it's normal to believe it could have been him. But what increases that possibility to almost 100% is a description the work makes about an iron hammer. That description was previously used to talk about Reed, Reinhard's ancestor. And while Reed is already dead, it is always said how he has techniques comparable to the current Sword Saint. So, we have dialogue that Reinhard usually says, along with a description of a technique only he and Reed use. Well, it's not hard to imagine the knight has returned. But this brings another question. Who is stopping Satella? I'll tell you right now that I rule out Petra asking Roy to devour her so the witch returns to her seal. She just showed an unbreakable resolve where, despite what she sacrifices, she will never sacrifice her personhood. Let's remember that at this moment, although the witch is free, she isn't at 100% of her power, but is weakened by the seal. So, now that the dragon has been defeated, Clin could have regained control of his old body and headed to fight the witch. Why did he go with his old body and not his current body? That, although it may not seem like it, also has a simple and credible explanation. Supposedly, Volcanica and Clin's identity is still a secret only Roswaal knows. So to keep up appearances, he asked Clan to go with his old body to stop the nerfed witch. But anyway, remember this is just my belief. I might be wrong, but even if I am, I don't care. What matters is imagining the possibilities that exist today. And to finish up, I've seen some say it can't be Reinhard because of the Reinhard Law, which is a rule in the Re-Zero world stating the knight cannot enter another country without prior permission. Let's see, even if that law exists. If I were the leader of the nation of Kararagi, the nation where this whole confrontation is happening, I wouldn't care if the strongest man in the world comes to deal with the most dangerous man in the world right now. In fact, I'd be so grateful he rid me of the dangers and problems that I'd even pay for the therapy the Astria family needs to restore their family bonds. So for those who refuse to believe Reinhard arrived for a reason like this, I think you lack a bit of common sense. But that's all for today. As I always say, a like and a comment help the channel more than you know, so don't hesitate to leave me your comments on today's episode. This way, YouTube keeps recommending my videos and I keep putting out more content from this series that nobody reads and only watches summaries of. See you.